as it echoes. I'm going to call this public hearing to order. In attendance this evening are Supervisors Fisher, Aguizio, Fleer, Cassiola, and Barney, as well as Dan Dizeroth, Township Engineer, Jack King, Assistant Township Manager, Alexis, what's your last name? Wheeler, sorry, I drew a blank, Township Solicitor. Before we begin this hearing, we're going to kind of you're gonna have to bear with me for a second because I have to kind of walk through some formalities. It sounds silly, like I have to explain to you what a comprehensive plan is, but we have to do it for the record.
Cindy, don't I get sworn?
Yeah, I'll get to it. I didn't forget about it. A comprehensive plan provides the organization framework for the other community land use planning tools such as zoning or subdivision and land development ordinances, as well as for infrastructure development, capital budgeting, and other governance issues. They are guidance documents, aspirational, they are not binding. Completed MPC steps that were taken, the proposed plan was forwarded to the County Planning Commission, the school district, and contiguous municipalities for review and comment. Minor comments were made and considered. The planning agency held a public meeting before forwarding the proposed comprehensive plan to the governing body. Public notice for this hearing was published in the Observer Reporter on November 15th and 29th, 2022. And the presentation of this plan, we're going to go through in about, 5 minutes or so. Before we get there, if you intend to speak at all or think you may say anything, please stand up to be sworn in.
Wait, why does somebody have to be sworn in if they just want to give their opinion on something?
Because it's a hearing.
Still, they're just giving an opinion, they're not testifying to a fact.
We always take it.
No, I can never figure out why.
I don't know. Ask the lawyers of the world that one. We always do. If you intend to speak at all, please just stand up. It's a formality. We promise we won't. It doesn't matter. Stand up.
Even if you think there's a chance that you might say something.
Yeah. I would just recommend that everybody stand up and be
But the
sworn in.
attorneys don't normally get sworn in.
We're going to swear everybody in.
Just out of caution.
Just do it. We promise we won't force you to speak, but this way, if you want to speak, you're covered. Dan, do you want to walk through the plan now?
Sure.
Okay.
So the board has been given a copy of the
Putting it up there? Jack, you putting it up there for the reason?
Yeah, we're going to put it. What do you want to put up there for the map? Well, I just wanted to give an overview of what documentation we have for the comprehensive plan. What's before you tonight and what I gave to the board was an updated copy of the written text of the comprehensive plan. A lot of the most recent focus has been on the land use map, but we do have the verbiage and we meet all the requirements per the MPC with the document that's been before us. So, if you just open to the table of contents, basically there's a lot of background information that's put forward in the first two sections. There's heavy public input that was documented within Section 3 of the plan. And then Section 4 is the plan for tomorrow. The vision, the future land use, future development. It talks about housing needs, natural and historical areas, municipal governments in operation. Then there's also some strategies of how to get there. There's some measuring tools in terms of plan consistency and measuring success. So the plan is comprehensive. I believe that the solicitor provided a checklist that I reviewed, read the document again, and I believe that what we have before us it contains all the required information. So that's my testimony. And then we have the future land use map, if anybody wants to talk about that. But essentially, we went through a number of Board of Supervisors workshops to come up with a strategy in terms of future land use. I would say that the biggest things that came out of that were that we decided that there would be separate mixed-use categories, one for mixed-use residential, one for mixed-use commercial, and then really the rest of the plan just followed suit with pretty much the direction that came from the steering committee, other than some minor changes by the Board of Supervisors. So that's all I really have to say.
I like it. Does any board member want to walk through the map one more time? Does anybody have in the audience?
I don't know how we can go forward with this. You got commercial, you don't have, where's the breakdowns? What's C1, 2, and 3? It says commercial.
We still have not finished that.
Pardon me?
We still haven't finished that.
No.
That's not a part of the comprehensive plan map.
Yeah, but it's shown commercial, what is it, C1, 2, or 3?
Well, that's what we can determine when we go to look at the zone. Like I say, this area here, we want to zone C2. That's, we do that through the zoning process. This is just a comprehensive plan process.
That's
We need to-
correct.
we need to
I
categorize-
still don't think, you're putting a cart before the horse.
No, we have to do this first.
I don't believe so.
So right now, what you're saying is that it's zoned generally as commercial. Then
It's
once
just commercial, period.
right, once we zone it commercial, then we can go in and break
C1,
down,
C2, C3.
yeah, what part we want it.
Yeah, one of the,
Just tell you that too.
I don't think that's the right procedure.
No, that is correct. This is an aspirational document. It's not accomplishing any actual rezonings or anything like that. It's just simply saying that these areas might be appropriate for commercial development. The intensity and other specifics can come after the fact when you amend the zoning ordinance. In fact, you could amend the zoning ordinance to make these industrial, residential, whatever you wanted. This is just a planning guide. You don't have to necessarily rezone districts to be in conformance with this, but it's what you think would be appropriate now that you would like to see down the road.
so under the, in the written comprehensive plan on page 51, strategy 2A is to update the township zoning ordinance incrementally to be consistent with the future land use map. So one of the strategies within the plan is to go forward and do the zoning map.
Yes, that's not being accomplished at this time, just to be clear.
Nope. I do see Ron's point a little bit, though, and this is kind of what Tom and I went round and round a couple meetings ago, in that what if we zone something commercial, and then when we go in and actually define what commercial is, we voted for it as this board, and certain members of this board then don't agree what the definition of commercial is.
Because you don't have to follow this. Say this area right here is commercial. We could decide to zone it residential. This doesn't bind us to be any category of commercial. It's just, this is just
I
like a vision.
It doesn't bind us to anything, I understand that, but what in the heck's the point in going through the comprehensive plan if you're not gonna stick to it to
We had
some
all the
extent?
input from the steering committee, from our planning commission, and it's a vision that they say this area might be good for commercial. When it comes down to it, some property owner would come and say, you know, we have plans for a big residential development that may be beneficial to us.
Well, you
I-
can't go by a steering committee.
I understand all of
This
that.
was theirs.
Yeah, but if you go by a steering committee, why'd you take Don Fuchs's land out?
I'm saying a lot of this is theirs.
Why'd you take his out?
Well, because I don't think even the planning commission agreed that the village.
I never heard
should be-
nothing from the planning commission. The only
Well,
one I heard
they had
from
a
was
hearing.
you.
They had a hearing.
The planning commission did have a hearing, a public meeting on the comprehensive plan. They did make some minor comments, I understand, that were taken into consideration. Also, just for the sake of the court reporter, if everybody could please refrain from speaking over one another.
So, now I forgot what I was saying. I see Ron's point, and I see your point, Tom, too. There's nothing binding about the document, but what in the heck's the point in passing
It
it?
could be binding. If the majority realizes, yeah, majority wants to see that commercial, then it'll become commercial. But if for some reason the majority says, nah, that's too close to residential, we're not gonna put commercial there, then the majority's doing it.
Yeah, but commercial what?
Well, then that's.
C1, C2, or C3?
Well, we started working through that. We never finished it.
I think that should be,
It's not,
First.
there's no zoning as a part of the comprehensive plan. These are all general categories here.
Yeah, he's right. The zoning comes after, once we
Well, it's spread.
determine.
It may be, we may have to have new categories of colors, and it may be C1, C2, C3. We have three of those categories right now. But You see any C1 or C2 or C3, Ron, anywhere in here? No, it's just.
No, that's what I'm saying. We should know what we're approving. Wait a minute, the difference between C1 and C3 is a lot. So, okay, we say we're approving this. We don't know what's gonna be.
Right,
C1, 2, or 3.
We'll have meetings about that and come up with that.
That's correct. So when it comes down to it, you'll look at the comprehensive plan to say, these areas we've decided would be appropriate for commercial, but what intensity of commercial can be looked at on a smaller basis. The comprehensive plan is meant to be a general overview of the township and a general overview of the zoning process, and you can take it piece by piece within the zoning ordinance. This is just a guidance document to start you out down that road.
I do see what Ron's saying though too. Like there are certain areas that are zone things that I'm like, well, if it's zoned I1, okay, maybe. If it's zoned I2 or heavy industrial, I'm not okay with it.
And then that's whenever we'll sit down and assign a zoning category to everything.
Right, which
This
you got.
commercial is not a zoning classification.
I understand that, but you also have to understand that we put a lot of time and effort into this, and there's an expectation.
But we didn't. We didn't put any time into determining the C1.
No, not C1, 2. We put a lot of time into the map itself.
Right, so we gotta get it done.
So, right, we got to get it done, but you also have to understand that the residents' expectation is that we put a lot of time into this, they put a lot of time into this, that if we zone something commercial or if we zone something residential, that that's the way that it's going to stay.
I think it was always made clear that this isn't zoning changing anything.
I think you understand that. I think I understand that. I do not think a majority of the township understands that.
The steering committee say that, John Trent say that. I mean, that question did come up, you're right, and every single meeting we've ever had is always said by somebody that this doesn't bind, this isn't changing anything, this isn't commercial now. You can look at our current map to see what's commercial, what's residential, what's C1, C2, C3. This doesn't do any of that.
Right, understood. Okay. Anybody else on the board have any questions about the map? Anybody have any questions about the actual written document?
I really haven't read it all, but no.
I'm sorry?
I said I really haven't read it all. I just got it now.
No, it's the same. It hasn't really changed. We made some minor updates, but it hasn't changed in probably 6 or 9 months.
I mean, is it still in there about us buying fire trucks and stuff?
No, that's out.
That's all out.
It should be. I didn't
It
double
is.
check, but it should be.
Yeah, the public safety goals have all been modified to represent what's currently happening in the township.
Right. Does anybody if anybody from the audience has anything that they want to say, please step to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Yes, it's Michael. Last name's Irino.
I actually need you, sorry, to speak into the microphone because we are recording it.
You know what, I'm just getting this before he starts talking, so I can get a designation.
We make everybody state their name.
I know, but I'm trying to get a designation so I can.
Okay.
Go ahead.
IERINO.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I would still prefer that you just do that at the microphone just because we are recording it too. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Irino. I'm not a resident of Cecil Township. I represent a property owner within Cecil Township. As you may or may not be aware, I represent Donald Fuchs, who owns property within the Gilmore area of properties there, right on the edge of Cecil Township. And whether you may or may not know, I'm sure that there has been many, many conversations about residential versus commercial up there, the industrial surrounding residential. And I'm here on behalf of Donald because what the steering committee did was important. What this comprehensive plan does is important. This is the future of Cecil Township. And regardless of whether it binds the township to do anything at all, it does bind the township in the sense of that this gives any property owner within the township, including Donald Fuchs, a means forward in how they're going to develop their property. Donald Fuchs owns multiple properties within the Gilmore division of properties, and At the time the steering committee came out with this comprehensive plan, that was designated commercial for a reason. I've been through the comprehensive plan back and forth. The whole purpose of that is to survey the community, get responses, and overwhelmingly, the community says they're looking for commercial retail development within this community, and that's what Donald Fuchs seeks and has been seeking to do within that plot of land that's surrounded by the industrial there in the Gilmore Village. And for whatever reason, all of a sudden, that got pulled out and pushed towards residential property to stay that way moving forward. And I understand that it's been that way historically, but just because historically that's the way it's been, doesn't mean that that's the way it's supposed to remain going forward. Donald Fuchs is looking to do something that's beneficial not only to the Gilmore properties, but to Cecil Township as a whole. And I believe wholeheartedly that this was done because, and I've been told this on multiple occasions, the property owners up there distrust Donald Fuchs. They dislike Donald Fuchs. That is not a justifiable basis for saying we're going to make this residential property, not commercial property. You want to bury a residential property and continue to bury a residential property in something that is surrounded by industrial property. And I get that that's how it's historically been, but there is seemingly no justifiable basis for doing that moving forward based on how the steering committee came out, based on the survey results, which my understanding was close to 900 individuals, and based on my recollection of it, over 60% have indicated that they wanted commercial retail development within Cecil Township to move forward. By leaving this residential, that is handcuffing that Gilmore section of properties. When you look at that entire corridor, from the middle section up in Cecil Township all the way down to the Gilmore properties, there is literally commercial outlining that entire corridor. And then boom, it hits industrial, and then it sandwiches residential properties down there. It just doesn't seemingly make sense to me with what the steering committee brought forth, what the community said that they wanted, and based on what is in the best interest of Cecil Township. And so I'm just here putting on the record that I believe that this comprehensive plan was changed for the wrong reasons. I understand that there's been tenuous situations up there in the Gilmore properties between other property owners and Mr. Fuchs. I understand that, but that still doesn't negate the fact that the comprehensive plan is supposed to be done for what's in the best interest of the community. And just simply because the residential owners up there seemingly distrust or dislike Donald Fuchs doesn't give a sound basis to say, well, we're going to keep this residential now, when the steering committee and the community seemingly had a strong opinion about what they thought that should be zoned. And so that was my first point in coming up here, but I also feel it necessary to make part of the record on a second basis that I understand that Supervisor Barney was a member of the steering committee that pushed this forward, and I would like to put on the record my objection that I believe that she should not be allowed to vote on this comprehensive plan on the basis that she was part of a steering committee that has categorized her property in a more beneficial light to her, which I believe is a pecuniary interest, which would ultimately, I think, prohibit her from voting on this. I mean, the fact that she was on the steering committee and now gets to vote on something that helps her, I just don't find any justifiable basis for that. And I would also note that she's made commentary on social media, specifically regarding the Gilmore properties, and in my mind, has somewhat prejudged how that area should be zoned, saying that it needed to remain residential. That was well before this public hearing even occurred, or there was even a chance to take public commentary on this. So I would like to make my objection noted for the record on that. I will be reiterating that objection when it comes time for the vote on this, whenever it happens at the township's next meeting or the meeting after that. But That is all I had to state tonight. If anybody would like to, I'm absolutely willing to stay up here and take comments or questions. Otherwise, I'll return to my seat.
Any board members have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience have any comments or questions on the plan? Any board members have any additional comments or questions on the plan?
I just feel that they're penalizing Mr. Fuchs.
They're what, I'm sorry?
They're penalizing Mr. Fuchs. All down through Cecil, they made a commercial. That's all residential houses. So what's the difference between that and Gilmore? They're all living in commercial property areas, and they're single-family homes.
Yep, understand. Tom?
I think my comment would be that probably somewhere in this map, a proposal from the steering committee and then from our planning commission and from us, we might have taken somebody's property who was commercial and changed it to residential. That could have happened. And I don't know if people know about it, and they might become aware of it later when they go to do something with their property, or else if they see our finally adopted new zoning map. But with Mr. Fuchs' property, it's not like it was commercial, we pulled it into residential. I mean, it's the same thing with Mr. Delbo's property. I mean, it was always residential, and he did ask to be, I think he even asked for a zoning change to have it zoned. We didn't change it to commercial, but it's not like it was commercial and then we forced residential on him. Like I said, it could happen somewhere else here too, and I don't know, I'm not aware of every single parcel of what could have been changed, but I know with those two in particular, like I said, I think they'd have more of an argument if it was always commercial and then it was, we turned it into
It was a
residential.
gas station and a general store.
I don't know if it's zoned for
Well,
gas
what
stations or
would
not.
it be? It was a gas station and general store for the mine.
This was before the zoning, then it had been non-conforming, they'd have been allowed to continue till they went out of business. So I'm just saying that they're, like I said, it wasn't commercial, we took it off and turned it to residential.
Keep in mind, there's no vote tonight. We will vote, I will close this hearing once we're done, and then we will vote at our January regular monthly meeting. Any other comments? This hearing is now closed. Sorry.
No, her eyes are blinking. You have anything else you want to say, darling?
No, not really.
Do you want to keep a copy?
Yes. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna terminate this.
Okay.
Since 2019,
Yeah, that's when the steering committee finished it.
finished, yes.
Well, you know my vote. I can give you my vote right now.
Exactly like mine.